where me and my friend and colleague Ali, we talk about real estate, business matters, financial matters, and all the while we try to tell some funny stories, make each other laugh, and be informative.
I'm not very funny, so it's
I'm not really funny.
Well, me making all the jokes.
I'm Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate, as well as Remax Realtron Realty Inc. I'm here with my friend and co-host Ali from
the Home Investors team.
And
I don't know why I said
Realtron,
it like that, but
Remax Realtron Realty Inc. as well. Before we get into today's podcast, you can find our contact informations in the description box. As well, if you listen to this podcast, you happen to enjoy it, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. All that stuff. So anyways, Ali.
Subscribe. Did you say subscribe?
I did say subscribe.
Okay, just making sure you said subscribe.
Since
and also click the bell for notifications. You forgot that.
Exactly.
Ooh.
Ring the bell.
And while we're shamelessly promoting ourselves, you can follow us on Instagram. My handle is aliem.realtor, and yours is?
I don't shamelessly promote myself. That's fine. But if you want to find me, you can find me at SaberiSixRealEstate on Instagram. Or if you want to follow my personal account, well, too bad. You can't.
So clearly, if you're looking for a realtor that's shameless in promoting himself, you know who to call.
If you want a realtor with integrity and honesty.
Oh, don't question my integrity.
No, I'm joking. Ali is one of the best agents, actually, in our office. And
second to you.
Yeah, that's the first correct thing you've said. Anyways, so in today's podcast, I thought, why not list all the ways I'm better than Ali? No, that's not it, actually.
It's a very short list.
Let's talk about advice we have for first-time home buyers, right?
Yep.
Now, we both work with a lot of first-time home buyers. Mm-hmm. And I think some of our advices we're going to give don't necessarily even exclusively apply to first-time home buyers.
No, a lot of people could get something from it.
A lot of return buyers can get something from it. But definitely, since they're first-time home buyers, our advice is more pertinent to these people because they're inexperienced. It's their first time delving into the market, getting involved. Mm-hmm. They might not know better in some sense, right?
Right.
So we're going to talk about that, and we'll see where the conversation takes us. So, right. Ali, what would you... Let's say I walk into your office, and I say, Ali, I'm a first-time home buyer, or I'm a buyer. I bought way back, but I haven't bought in a long time. I haven't been involved in the market. I just sold with you, or I just want to buy with you for the first time. What is the first thing you say?
Okay. I don't know. Okay. Like, essentially... I'm not going to answer that question, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to take my own approach to this, okay?
Well, I'm going to leave your office right now.
That's okay. You know what? If you don't want to work with me, that's fine. That's not a problem. I've turned clients away. I've had clients that at some point where they were just too difficult to deal with, where they weren't listening to my advice. And it's like, you've hired me to represent you and to help you. And now you're not listening to my advice and my recommendations and how I think we should move this forward because I'm working in your best interest. And if you don't listen to me, then why did you hire me? So at this point, it doesn't make sense for me to continue serving you. I think you should find another agent. And I've done that before.
For sure.
And I have no regrets, and I'll do it again if I have to. But what I would say, one of the first things is, what's your objective? Because I think... that's very important to figure out what the objective is. If it's just getting to a home, or if it's, a lot of people don't like moving, or they want to find one property and live there forever. If that's the case, then we're going to figure out what your budget is. Well, budget is always going to be very important, obviously. But if you're a first-time home buyer that has a $3 million budget, I can find you a place you want to call home for the rest of your life. If you're a first-time home buyer that has a budget of maybe $600,000, and it's your first starter property, and in 4 to 5 years you're gonna move out of there, then that's a whole different situation. Mm-hmm. Which, if that's your situation, then you need to compromise on your wish list and the demands that you have and what your first property is gonna be like, because it's your starter home. This is your first home. For sure. I think that's where a lot of first-time home buyers get caught up, because they may have lived with their parents up to a certain age, and the parents had nice, beautiful homes in different areas, you know, nice big backyard. It was a detached property, 4 bedrooms or whatever, and all of that nice fancy things. And because they're used to that, now they want their first home to be the same thing, but on a $600,000 or $700,000 budget in the GTA. Like, I mean, good luck. You're buying,
For sure.
you know, a townhouse. If you're in a core or anywhere in the 416, you're gonna buy a stacked townhouse.
Yeah.
Not even really a row townhouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing is figure out what your bare minimum needs are, and then everything on top of that consider as a plus. Because if you have a list of 10 things that you want that are completely necessary, then I'm going to tell you that, you know, go back and figure out your budget and come back with a higher pre-approval amount, and then we'll talk again. Because if you have a list of 10 things that you absolutely must need and want, then you're not ready to buy property.
So
I think, but like in addition to getting pre-approved and all of that stuff, that's just something that came off the top of my head right now. Obviously, one of the first things you want to do as a first-time home buyer is figure out what your budget is.
For sure.
Go speak with a mortgage broker. Give him your numbers. Get your credit score pulled. Give him your notice of assessment, your tax returns, and all of that stuff, and let them figure out what your max is of what you can get pre-approved for. Doesn't mean you need to buy at your max, but at least you know what your max is, and then we can work from there. That's the first and number one step if you're a first-time home buyer and you want to get into the market. Before you even talk to an agent, or maybe based on your agent's recommendation of a mortgage broker you should deal with, that should be really your first stop. Get your budget in line.
It's good that you brought that up. Actually, before you brought up the mortgage part, I was going to say that as my first tip. Is that, I guess maybe I'll go into it right now as my first tip. I always ask my clients to be on the same page with their mortgage broker, and always reconfirm and confirm, because I'm working with 2 first-time home buyers right now, actually, right?
Right.
And I've asked them, we've seen a couple properties with one of them, and he wants to put an offer on one of them. And I asked them, well, okay, before we go ahead and put an offer here, once again, talk to your mortgage broker. Make sure that, yes, she or he has crossed all her T's and dotted her I's to see you can get approved for this amount.
Right.
Because you don't want to submit an offer with a deposit and then it gets accepted, the financing condition does not get waived. What happens then is you're hopefully not in a dispute with the seller over your deposit, but that can happen, right? That's what you touched on, that, right? Just to be very, very concretely sure about how much you can get approved for. Because pre-approval, you can touch on this maybe a bit, doesn't mean a lot nowadays, right?
No. What I actually, here's the different kinds of pre-approvals. There's pre-approvals where the broker will just crunch some numbers and tell you verbally. There's pre-approvals where they'll pull your credit, you give them your financials, and then they'll put it on paper. And then you can even take it one step further, where it's a concrete approval, where they will contact the underwriter. This is the property, this is the client, is this approved? And I've done that before, where we were going into an offer presentation. I called a broker and said, hey, this is the situation. And they called the lender. They contacted the underwriter and said, client's going into a bidding war. This is the property. This is, their financials and all of that stuff, credit score, blah, 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 blah. What's the max? And they came back with, they're approved. We can go up to X amount of dollars. And
so, let me ask you a question. In that example, when you guys, when you contacted the broker and the broker contacted the underwriter, the figure the underwriter gave to the broker and then the broker gave to you, was that the same figure that the buyers came to you with initially that they got approved for?
No, because it changes. It also changes with property type as well, right? But it's generally it's pretty close. Like, I mean, sometimes they can squeeze another 10, 15, or 20,000 on the approval,
or they can cut it.
Right, or they can cut it. It can go either way, right? Yeah, and that'll make a huge difference if you're in a bidding war and like it's and you're maybe $5,000 to $10,000 apart from the other offers, and you go in with a firm deal because The underwriter has already approved it. So at this point, they know what the property is. They know what the price that we're going in at. We can waive the financing condition, and we can go in with, a solid deal and get it approved. Oftentimes, even before we even get to that stage, if it's not my mortgage broker that they're dealing with, I'll ask for a copy of the pre-approval letter. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they're like, pre-approval letter, what's that? Like, well, that's when your mortgage broker would have crunched your numbers, pulled your credit, and put it on paper that you have been pre-approved for X amount of dollars with this much of a down payment, based on your employment situation, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes there's even conditions with that pre-approval, right? I had one case where my client said, yeah, we have the pre-approval, it's on paper. I said, great. Are there any conditions? Because we're going to an offer presentation and they wanted to go in firm. I was like, well, I haven't seen your pre-approval yet. Can you send it to me? And then they sent it to me, and there was like 6-7 different conditions in the pre-approval. I was like, guys, I don't feel comfortable going in firm for you guys based on what I'm seeing here.
So explain some of those conditions for the people.
Well, the conditions...
just like one.
Sometimes they'll pull your credit again.
Yeah.
They'll want you to verify your employment again. They might ask you for 3 months of or 4 months of pay stubs or bank statements. There was one, I don't remember exactly off the top of my head right now, but there was one that I was like, oh, no, the one condition was based on them pulling the credit bureau before closing. And I was like, hold on, they haven't done that yet?
Yeah.
Why? What kind of pre-approval is this on paper if they haven't pulled your credit yet?
That's like one of the main
And I was
instruments they look at.
There's no way I can comfortably put in an offer with no financing condition if the broker hasn't pulled your credit yet. Right? You think it's great. You think it's good. But when's the last time you checked it? Oh, I checked it last year. Well, great. A lot's happened since last year. You may have missed one payment on your credit card and your score could come down because there's no real science to the credit score. Like, I mean,
there is an algorithm, and
there is an algorithm, but they won't tell you what the algorithm is because they're afraid of people knowing what the algorithm is and what the formula is and abusing it. And every 4 years, 5 years, they claim bankruptcy and then they start it all over again. So that's why Equifax and the credit TransUnion, the rest, they won't actually release the exact formula or the algorithm of how they calculate it. And there's sometimes people that have excellent credit, all of a sudden, like my brother and my dad have the same name. And at one point, my brother is really bad with bills, and generally he's got pretty poor credit. And then one time we checked it, and he was like in the 800s. And I was like, how's this possible? Like 3 months ago or like last year, your credit was in the 6s, even lower. How did you jump to 800? This doesn't make sense. And I think that's because they actually messed things up with my dad's name.
So they have the same first name and last name?
Same first name and last name, but different middle names. But I guess on the credit bureau, they didn't report the middle names, and so there's always that kind of confusion.
So was your father's
my dad's credit is still pretty damn good. Like it's old. He's very amiable paying his bills on time.
That's good.
But he once yelled at me because I was late by a day paying his bill. Yeah. So he's like, "Oh, the interest I'm paying on this."
Well, I would say moving forward, the second thing, the tip I have is...
Okay, well, we were wrapping up financing that quickly?
Yeah, why not?
You want to ask your broker to...
for sure.
To put it on paper, read the conditions, and make sure that there's no funny conditions in there. That's what I would say with respect to financing. If you're not... I generally want people to deal with my broker, because I've worked with him so many times and I trust him. And when he says this is what they're approved for and you can go in, I'm confident. Like I don't even ask twice. Yeah. He's the same guy who got me my mortgage. I'm not concerned. There's other brokers I've dealt with in the past.
He's a really good broker.
Absolutely.
Say that.
Absolutely. But there's a lot of great brokers out there. I'm not just trying to shine light on him, but I'm saying if I haven't dealt with a broker before, I want the pre-approval letter, or sometimes I call and I speak with that broker, and then I get more information from him as to what he thinks and all of that before we start drafting offers and stuff and so forth.
So before we move on from the financing thing, one last thing I would say is This is why when I have been lucky enough to work with a buyer who doesn't require financing, can pay all cash. I actually worked with one buyer like that. Now, obviously, since they're paying all cash, their budget is not above. If I can say their budget was not above 700, it was below 700, right?
Is it like money coming in from overseas?
No.
One
They
of those,
sold.
Rich.
They
Like
sold
Russian
the property.
oligarchs or something like
They
that?
sold the property.
Okay.
And they got the property through a will.
Oh, okay.
Estate.
And they're a first-time home buyer? Or this is like...
They were first time. Well, I don't know the legalities. Are you still considered a first time home buyer if you don't purchase the property you own? If you get it through inheritance?
I think so, yeah.
Yes, I guess she was. But the good thing is I didn't have to worry about financing at all. Right? All my offers were firm.
Right.
You know, we didn't get into bidding wars, but we had leverage.
Right. Of course, yeah.
Yeah. But so that's why, obviously, that's very high standards to like want your buyers to have, and no buyer is going to have that at all, right?
No, it's very rare, but
Very rare.
the point is getting the financing. So if you have to waive it, sometimes I've won bidding wars by going in lower on price
because you were firm.
but we had a firm deal, firm offer.
Sure,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
So that's that on the financing note. So my second one was that I always speak to my buyers and I say, look, there are 3 to 5 main things that everyone would want from a property. And if you can have, and this speaks to what you're talking about in terms of compromise, if you can have all 3 to 5, that's perfect.
Wonderful.
That's wonderful, right? But if the right property comes along where it's abundant in 3 but doesn't have the 4th one, you have to consider not getting that 4th thing in your criteria.
Right.
So, for instance, the couple of things I always send my first-time home buyer or even a buyer I'm working with, I ask them through email or in person, look, prioritize these following things for me. Resale value.
Very important.
Location. Age.
Okay.
Size.
Okay.
And those are the main 4. Obviously, I don't want to say quality because everyone's going to say quality is important, but and budget 5th, right? So,
question: why age?
Because a property can be very, very in fine condition, but older.
Right. So then, why would age matter that much?
Because it has more upkeep. It might not be aesthetically the modern style people want. You get what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. I don't like. Yeah.
A lot of
I think the
don't
younger generation like the newer built homes
Of
because
course.
they're modern, all of that stuff.
But my point is, if I could find
okay.
my clients a property that has everything they want, but it's just older.
Right.
It's been renovated inside.
But
It's older.
You're right. Okay.
Yeah, right. So that in my experience, that's been one of the things I put in there.
Okay.
So typically, what people, so I have one of my clients right now is saying resale value is not important for us.
Not important.
Oh, okay, it's important, but I asked them to prioritize it, and they say if they can go without one and rank one of them lower, it's resale value. They really want size, they want something affordable, and they're very keen on the location.
So where are they going?
I don't want to disclose that. I can tell you later.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I don't. They might listen. They might listen to this, you know. So.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. No, I understand that. But
Give me 1 second.
when you say location, like close to work, close to family, or the certain part of the city that they want to live in.
No, so close to work, obviously.
Gotcha. Okay.
But there's a plethora of things, right? Like we have to
no,
sit down with
because
them
like
to see
resale value kind of ties in with location as well. Like I mean, I have
not
clients
really.
that like are weighing like York region to like
Not all
Whitby,
the
for
time.
example. Which for me, the resale value in York region in like Vaughan will be greater than
not all the time,
Whitby.
because look at this. Resale.
Generally
Yes,
speaking.
generally speaking, they coincide. But for instance, like I've had clients where they work in one area, right? But that area is not high in resale value. Doesn't traditionally have a high trend in terms of resale value.
Right.
But
Because it's close to work, they still want to live in that area.
or I could get them another place in an area that's not that far from that area they work
Right.
in, but it's like a good commute, but that area has a higher resale value. You
Right.
get what I'm saying?
Right.
At that point, you have to weigh your options and what weights you give to different.
No, for sure. Yeah.
So I asked them to prioritize these things. And as I said, my current client, one of them, they said resale value is not important. Now, I told them, look, this is not going to be your forever home, right?
Right.
It's your starter home. And resale value, in my opinion, is important. But if you're telling me that, hey, we're okay with relisting this when we want to sell it, and we're okay with it potentially being on the market several times and be slower sell, right? Depending on, once again, everything else being equal, right? If there isn't a volcano explosion that like affects everything or like a catastrophe. But they prioritize resale value on the lower end, right? But I've had other clients, they only care about resale value because they're not necessarily investors, the end users, but they're very financially minded. They're like,
Right.
okay, I'm willing to have a longer commute, willing to have a smaller unit, but hey, these projects in these areas are very good. And, it's a popular area.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just one of the things I always sit down with them and say, hey, know what you want and know what you're willing to cut. Know where you're willing to compromise, where a property has almost everything you want except that one last thing.
Those are very solid points and very good recommendations. I actually, I think that sincerely. The one thing I would say is that in my experience, what I've had these conversations with people, and then we go on tour, and like in the first or second tour, we see a property that like meets the criteria, but they're like, oh well, we haven't seen enough properties yet. And here's one thing that it doesn't matter if you've seen enough properties or not. This property meets your criteria, and more likely than not, if you keep waiting, A, you might not come across another property like that, or B, the prices will like start going up.
Or C, you might actually say, hey, we'll route back to this property, but you route back and you see it has two offers registered.
Right.
Now you're competing.
Right. And in 2016, 2017, when the market was getting very hot, a lot of that was happening. There was offer presentations, and they were like, oh, we'll wait for the next one. And it's like, well, the next one's going to be more than this one, more than likely, because what was happening was every new price that was set, every new record, the next one that was coming on the market was looking back at that, and now the price is going up based off that, right? So if the new price is $650, then next house that's coming on the market in 2-3 weeks is now looking at $650 and wants to go higher than that. So now the new price is $660, $670, and within like a couple of months, prices are jumping $20K. Meanwhile, now you're not finding that same property that had everything that you wanted, or you're now have to compromise on your must-haves or your wish list, settle for something a bit less, maybe at a lower price point, or potentially even at a higher price point, because you felt as if you haven't seen enough, and it's too soon to put an offer on this property because you think there's something else out there. Well, it doesn't necessarily matter if there's something else that's out there. If this meets your criteria, you've checked off 4 or all 5 of your must-haves, then what's holding you back? Right?
I've actually had the reverse of that. Honestly, a lot of things you say, I've had the reverse of it.
Really?
This is a comment. Because no, the reverse of that is we see a property, it's our first set of showings.
Right.
They love it. And I'm like, okay, look, you're saying your timeline is 3 to 6 months to buy.
Right.
We've only seen let's just see what else is out there. Now, obviously, as a professional real estate agent, if that property they love is like a knockout, amazing price, I can get the best deal for them. Because even if they say they love it, and I'm saying you shouldn't put an offer right now, obviously I'm going to go home and do further research to see what I could get it for, right?
Right.
Even if I don't
depends on a market.
If I don't, exactly.
Right.
Some
the market now is a bit different, although the offer presentation is starting up again. But 2018 and 2019, you didn't see as many offer presentations as, 2015, 2016, and 2017. Yeah.
2015 was ridiculous.
Well, the height was
2014,
early 2017.
Yeah.
January to March of 2017 was the height of the market. That was, prices were all-time high at that point. And then the government made all the changes and all of that. And then, I think May is when things came into effect, the foreign buyers tax and the stress test and all of that stuff.
Exactly.
And that's when the market took a...
Well, the foreign buyers tax cut out a lot of investors, right? And that's...
Yeah.
A lot of speculators couldn't get
involved. But, if it wasn't for COVID now,
the
market would actually be higher than it was in 2017. I actually ran the numbers and I compared year over year and like month over month. And if it wasn't for COVID, the prices at the same, like in March, in April, in May, when was it? We went into quarantine March 15th. So I looked at the first week of March and compared it to the first 2 weeks of March in 2017. And the numbers were almost the same. So I only imagine April and May, the numbers would have been higher. Trend. Yeah.
But touching back though, as I was saying, I've had the problem where my clients fall in love with the property too quickly, and they don't see that there are other options out there, right? And honestly, I'm not trying to disagree with you.
But I get that. That's happened to me as well, though. When they do love a property, but then you also think that I think there's something else that's better.
Even that day, I'm like, even like the next two properties we're going to, I think I have something that that's better for you,
right?
But at the end of the day, though, like all we can do is just strongly advise if we feel confident or we should always feel confident. But if we have good grounds to strongly advise, that's all we can do. We cannot choose for our clients. We cannot.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's just, the point of what I was trying to make is that if you come across that, even in the first couple of showings, don't hesitate to move on it.
Exactly. If the property is exactly what they want. If the property
is what you're looking for, don't think that, if you wait, you might find something better. It's possible, but like from my experience, especially like in the past couple of years, that wasn't always the case.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. And so more often than not, you're not going to find the same kind of property that meets everything that you want.
Yeah.
It's like I've had a client that we went and looked at condos in the first tour that we went. I think we saw about 5 to 6 condos, and she liked one, and she's like, okay, let me see just a few others. We went for a second tour, saw another 4 or 5, and she's like, yeah, I'm good with the one that we saw in the first tour. I'm good with that. Let's go wrap it up.
Yeah.
And then that took a whole, I think it was from one Saturday to the next Saturday. And then that following Monday, we went in with the offer and we wrapped up the deal.
That's pretty good. So that's the thing too, man. You have to, as a realtor, a lot of people don't understand, like, in my opinion, what separates, at least on the buying side, right? Yeah. The selling side is different. On the buying side, what separates good realtors from not so good realtors, in my opinion, is having an understanding of what your clients want and where they're at in terms of seriousness, right?
Right.
Because here's the thing, right? Ideally, if it was up to me, with a buyer, right, I would just act for the buyer. Like if I'm asking for feedback on a property because we might have to put an offer that night, right? And if I'm asking, hey, so we might have to put an offer this night, so give me your feedback. But for tomorrow, we're also going on showing. So tell me when you can meet me. Tell me if you can, how many showings you can do. You can do 5? Can you do 10? Or do you have only time for 2? Like a lot of things, you need a lot of information from the buyer for you to do your job, right? You need a lot of cooperation. You're operating as a team almost, right?
Yeah, you need to ask. There's a lot of questions to be asked in order to.
And there's a lot of you have to be on the same page here, right? If they see a property and they don't like it, but they don't want to be insulting towards you, or they feel like they will offend you if they say, "Hey, I don't like this property you showed me," and they just say, "Hey, it's okay, it's not my thing." Well, that's not being on the same page with me. I have to know if you hate it, if you like it, So. In my opinion, what separates a good realtor from a bad realtor is being able to think for your clients. Even if your client says, hey, I'm very serious about buying right now, but their actions don't show that.
Right.
they're not quick to move. They always cancel showings with you. You're supposed to go on a showing, and they're like, "Oh, I can't come because of this, because of that." You have to understand they're not that serious right now.
Of course.
And you have to have more patience, and then you might have to work at a slower pace. Whereas, if you have a client that you know is serious, right, you have to read that and understand, look, it's not good enough that we're going to showings twice a week. We have to go to showings every day.
During lunch
and have multiple I don't think this is a saying, I think I'm making this up, but have multiple fishing lines in the water at the same time, like I made that up, but you get the idea I'm trying to say is where you're going on showings, but maybe you're working on negotiating on something on the side where you're breaking down, hey, this is my buyer's first option. If this doesn't work, we can go for that offer, right? We can put an offer on that property.
So you've done you've put in 2 offers on separate properties at the same time?
No, I have not, because that's illegal and you can't do that. But what I've done is I've put in an offer on a property for my buyer, and we've gone to showings.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But not a lot of realtors don't do that. Like, I don't think every realtor does that. And I think some do it when it doesn't require that. Some do it when the buyer's not the timeline is not that urgent. Like if I have a buyer that's looking to buy within the next year and they gave me an 8 month timeline, I don't need to submit an offer and then go to a showing with them unless there's a really good option out there that we need to see that day. Otherwise, most likely we have time. We have,
what you're saying is, like, I've done that before. I once submitted an offer. This was on a lease though.
Yeah.
We submitted an offer and then they signed back at a higher price. And while we had to sign back, the following, that night, we were waiting for the sign back to come in. We had just noticed another property had come to market. And so I scheduled a showing for the next day. We went to go see it, and I had the other offer in my hand. So he had sent me the sign back on the lease.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, well, let's see what happens with this property. And if we like it, then we're not going to move on with this one. Because my client wasn't gung-ho about the first property.
It's good you got a sign back in that case, because if you got it accepted, it would have been more of a ordeal.
But we went in low because we weren't really that crazy about the property.
Yeah.
So the client's like, if I can get it at this price, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
But anything beyond that, and I was on the same page as where I was like, I'm not fond of the property either. It's not an amazing property. At this price, yeah, it's fair.
Well, let me tell you what I've done.
So
let me tell you what I've done.
We killed that deal. We went with a new property.
What I've done is I've gone on a series of showings with my buyers where we're seeing 4 properties that day. Mm-hmm. And I've actually, before going there, I've prepared 4 offers.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
This is when I was hungry.
I've done maybe 2 offers at max.
No, I'm still hungry, by the way. That was a joke.
He wants a steak. If you're looking to buy, call me.
I've done that. I've done that before, where I prepare 4 offers, just knowing that my client is going to move on from one of the 4. Okay. So that way, because I know my client is very serious, right?
Right.
So that way, I save time when we go to the showings, and I know they're going to want to move forward. One of them,
mm-hmm.
I don't have to go. Say, hey, I'm going to go back to my office now, and prepare an offer, and send it to you.
No, fair enough.
Yeah. And this wasn't when the market was a bit hotter, by the way. So
what I normally do in that case, I usually have my laptop with me. It's usually in my bag. So what I will do is we'll go to a coffee shop right away, and I'll start working on the offer I drafted. We talk about a bunch of other stuff, and it gives me an opportunity to then once again reaffirm their financing situation, the kinds of conditions and the clauses I want to put in. So maybe that's good segue to some of our other tips in terms of
so
clauses you want to put in. But it allows me just to connect with them again and just go over things, and so they know that, listen, I'm here to work for them and I have them covered, and I'm here to help them out, right? And I'm serious about them buying or finding them a property as serious as they are. Because some agents, like you said, might go back to the office and they won't hear from them for hours.
Exactly.
No, let's go right now. Let's
That's
go
another
to
thing.
a
That
coffee shop.
we have to
Let's
collect.
take
We have
care
to
of
collect
this.
signatures from people, right?
Exactly.
I don't know how. When I was explaining when we have to be on the same page here, I don't know how I didn't mention that. That's like one of the biggest things that gets in the way of a cohesive and efficient movement on properties, right? With your client, is when you're like, hey, man, I prepared this offer with a workable for like 12 hours.
Right.
And I've sent this email to you for you to sign it via email, or I've emailed you the PDF for you to scan it back to me with your signatures, right? Mm-hmm. It's been like 3 hours. Where's your signatures here? So you know. So that's why when I say, I'm sorry if I'm talking too much.
Okay.
I'll let you after this. I'll let you
go,
move on
finish your point. I want to hear it.
Other points. That's when I say good realtors know which clients they're working with. Because if you know your client is slow to sign back, then or give you the signatures you need to send an offer, then you probably shouldn't prepare an offer with like a 12-hour workable. Even if,
more like 48 hours.
Yeah, you need.
No, I hear you.
And if you know you can afford it because your client's on the ball, they're with you there, step by step. Yeah, but yeah.
I agree with you. I had a client that took half a day to sign something, even though I did like 2-3 follow-ups. I'm like, all right, you know what? Sign it whenever you want. Like,
exactly.
I'm gonna take this as serious as you're taking it.
Yeah.
Don't bust my chops afterwards if we lose the property because I sent you the offer 12 hours ago and you still haven't signed it. So, See,
I don't have that ability, though, because I always keep annoying them. And
I'll follow up I'll follow up 2 to 3 times. But beyond that, let's be honest here. You're adult. You're an adult, right? You should be in a position where you know what your priorities are and you got to execute on those priorities. And so if this is one of your last priorities and you're not signing the offer that you asked me to prepare, and you lose the property, that doesn't fall on me because I've done my job and I've followed up with you 3 times to say, hey, I've sent you the document. Can you please review and sign and send it back to me as soon as possible? Because I need to send it to the other agent and, begin the negotiations. And if you're not doing your part of the job, that falls on you. I can't be blamed for you not signing the documents, right? Because I'm not allowed to legally sign it on your behalf.
No.
If you want me to do that, go to your lawyer, draft a legal document that says Ali is now my
and even then I'm not comfortable.
Power of attorney.
Yeah.
And then send me that document, and sure, I'll take care of it at that point. But that doesn't happen. Very, very rarely.
Well, I don't think that even happens. Rarely.
Yeah.
No. I've never heard of a buyer giving you authority in terms of power of attorney.
It depends on a relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know.
Like, for example, if you got a family member that's overseas and says, hey, I need an investment property. You know what you're doing. Here's the money. Go find me an investment property. Then, But, anyways, let's get to clauses because we touched on this real briefly. So, it depends on the market that you're in. You can't have... There's so many clauses. There's a ton of clauses. There's standard clauses and there's custom clauses that you have to create depending on the property, the location, the situation, the buyers and the sellers and everything else. So you can't say that there's these clauses, they go into every offer because that's not the case. Every offer has to be unique to the property. Mm-hmm. Now, when you are dealing with certain subdivisions where you do have, a builder that builds 200-300 homes, and for the most part, they're all the same, lot sizes are the same, finishes and all of that, then you'll get more into, kind of typical clauses that most offers will have. But it also depends on the market that you're in. If you're in a seller's market and you're competing against 5 or 10 other offers, once again, now it's important for you to have your financing taken care of, where you can go in without a financing condition if you have to. If you really like the property and you're not sure about the condition of the property, well then do a pre-inspection. Sometimes the listing agents might have the inspection available, so you can review that or schedule an inspection. Yeah. It'll cost you $300-$400 or maybe more depending on the property.
Inspection clause is a must.
But it's once again depending on the market. Right, we've done pre-inspections before where we went and inspected the property before going in the offer presentation to make sure that everything's okay. right? And in that case, then my client doesn't have to worry about taking off, removing the inspection clause because we've already done it. We've done our homework, just kind of like the financing, we've done our homework. Whereas in certain other markets, when it's a buyer's market and there is, 10 months of inventory, for example, then you don't really need to worry about all of that stuff, from an earlier stage. You can put in the offer, negotiate, and then have 5 business days to go get your financing done, have your inspection done, and have everything else done. But so the market that you're in really is important. If you have less than 2 months of inventory or less than 3 months of inventory, that's a seller's market. Then you're gonna have to do a little bit of your homework ahead of time, like inspection, financing, and all of that stuff. Like I said, buyer's market, it's a different story. But in terms of some of the clauses, let's say it's a standard market where it's balanced. It's not a buyer's market or a seller's market. Then financing condition, you get the pre-approval, so you know what kind of budget you're working with, but then you still have to, you still send a deal to the mortgage broker and to the underwriter for them to give you final approval. Inspection, depending on the property type. Like I bought a condo, I didn't inspect the condo. I wasn't too worried about that. But with some of the older condos, something that you might want to be concerned about is high-tech plumbing. So you want to make sure that it's either been removed, it's been remediated by the building, or if it hasn't and high-tech plumbing does exist, you put it into the offer that the seller is responsible, or they either remove it, or there is a clawback on the price where they discount the price, and then you take care of it.
Yeah, assuming I've had that. Well, just generally, not even about the plumbing, but bought a property from one of my clients last year, and the inspection, we did the inspection clause, the home inspector was there, and so there was a dangerous amount of mold in the attic, right? Very lethal amount of mold.
Wonderful.
And lethal for my client's father, because my client's father suffered from cancer, right?
Okay.
Right? So what we did was, as you said, we had 2 options. We could say before closing, either the seller pays for it, or we're readjusting the price,
to reflect the cost of removing the mold and remediate that problem.
According to the price that we would have to pay to remove it, we're just getting that as a discount, right? Basically, just I'm giving an example of what you were talking about.
Yeah.
So, and what other clauses would you say that are besides financing, right?
Right.
And besides
inspection, high-tech plumbing.
What are some standard clauses that in a slower market? Because obviously in the hotter markets, there's not a lot of clauses.
It also depends. Like some clients are superstitious, so they don't want people to have passed away in the property. So
you use clauses for that before?
Yeah, absolutely. That there has been no murders, or the property has not been used for the purpose of and proceeds of crime. Well, it wasn't a quote unquote trap house or a drug house. That's one, or used as a grow up. But some clients are superstitious. They don't want to live in a house where somebody has passed away. Whether that person. So here's a huge distinction where a lot of people think that it has to be disclosed. A murder in a home has to be disclosed. If it's known by the agent and the seller, it has to be disclosed. Absolutely. If somebody passed away from natural causes or tripped and fell inside that home, like say the homeowner tripped down the stairs and nobody was there to save him, and after a few hours they succumbed to their injuries and they passed away, which you're laughing, but I actually went to a house and that's what happened. The homeowner was an elderly person. He fell down the stairs and he died inside the house.
Oh, I was just saying if there was a figurative example.
That actually happened.
You were going way too far and making it torturous. Like, why can't they just pass away as soon as they fell?
Or,
why do they have to succumb over hours?
I mean, most people don't die from falling down the stairs, but unless they hit their head really badly and there's internal bleeding and various other things.
You're really going into detail. don't know, man. I don't have
in
this
any event,
sadistic
the point is,
imagination.
they passed away in the home. That's not a murder, right? And so that only has to be disclosed by the agent or the seller if the buying party asks.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to be
disclosed.
Disclosed. So that's why I put in the offer. Some clients, once again, they don't want, they feel as if the house is haunted and whatnot. So put it in the offer, and then they have to disclose it. They can't not disclose it because we asked about it, right? That sometimes I'll put in a condition, not condition, but clause, depending on how dirty the property is. Sometimes you walk into some homes and they've been really poorly taken care of, and there's stuff on the floor. The carpets haven't been cleaned in eons. It's just very cluttered and dirty and whatnot. I will put in, you walk in and the sink is full of dirty dishes, and then the garbage bin is overflowing. So in my estimation, that homeowner probably isn't taking very good care of the property, and upon moving out, they might actually leave a lot of garbage behind.
Yeah.
So I'll put in a clause that the property is free and clear of any garbage and debris, and then it'll be in broom swept condition. So if you're not going to clean it, hire a cleaning service or Molly-Mate to clean property. What else? I put in clauses for the number of keys that are going to be left behind for the house.
Yeah, that's important as well.
Mailbox, if it's a condo and it requires a fob, how many fobs will be left? Because fobs are expensive. It can be anywhere from $100 to $200-$300, right? Condo keys, depending on the condo, will only permit one kind of locksmith to replace the keys, right? And so that could be a $50 key, whereas if you have like a regular house key to a freehold property, you can go to a Home Depot or anywhere else and get a key for $5-$6.
Yeah.
I don't know. These are just certain clauses. Once again, it depends on a property. If it's on a well, you have to check the well. You want to do a test to see if the well is contaminated. If it's on a septic tank, once again, if the septic tank is full, if there's any leaks at that septic tank, all of these things have to be put in, because if that septic tank is leaking, the remediation costs of that can be enormous.
Yeah.
Right? Depending on how long it's been leaking for and how widespread the leak is. So that would fall on the new homeowner if the Environmental Protection Agency comes around and says, hey, you got a leak here, you got to fix this, and you just took possession 2-3 months ago. Obviously, that leak could have been from the previous owner. Not obviously, but chances are it might have been from a previous owner. It's been leaking for several months, and now you got to deal with this problem. In some cases, if you have the condition in there, you might have some recourse where you go back to the seller and say, you are responsible for this. You got to pay for this, because it's kind of hard to check septic tanks. But in any event, that just came off the top of my head. I don't know. Well, I'll throw it back to you because I'm tired of talking.
One thing I actually include, and this is not necessarily for the protection of the buyer always, or the seller, is for my protection, is that
Rather selfish.
I have every right to own the property. No, I have. No, I'm kidding. No, sometimes I put a clause. No, sometimes all the time actually. When I can put a clause saying that I have the right to advertise this property, this transaction as for my advertising and promotional material. You'd be surprised. Did a deal once, a transaction. My clients, it wasn't a purchase; it was a rental thing, right? And the tenants, we put an offer, it gets accepted. They're now renting the property, right? And I asked through the listing agent, is the landlord okay if I film in this unit, right? Perfectly fine. Got the permission, right? I think it's all good to go, right? I talk to my clients. I'm like, hey, before you get the closes, because it's a vacant property, do you mind if I go there and film? They're like, no, we don't want that. I was shocked.
Your client says that?
Yeah, my client said. I was surprised. I'm like, Okay. I can't really say anything though.
Right.
Right. So that's why I put a clause that says both parties agree that both the listing brokerage and the cooperating brokerage are allowed to use the occurrence of the transaction for promotional services, right?
Right.
Now, I'm only saying using that as an example because you said all the basic ones, right? Like that was the only one that I use quite often that you did not mention. And obviously there are...
I was thinking, I do put that one in.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't think about it.
Obviously, also we put in there are clauses we put that we didn't mention in terms of more office-oriented clauses, like where the deposit is being held in an interest-free account, and what business day refers to, and how many days they have to submit the deposit. Now that can vary a bit, right? Sometimes I put 3 business days if I know once again it's knowing your buyer.
Well,
right?
That's already kind of here's the thing, that in that on the first page where it refers to deposit and where the deposit is going to be delivered and how much, it says within 24 hours there. It actually says it there. So if you want to add, I don't know if it says that it's either this or anything in Schedule A supersedes this clause.
I was about to say, from my understanding, in that case, I think the Schedule A can't supersede it because
it can, yeah. But if you don't put it in, which if most of my clients, I haven't really been in a situation where I've had to use that because I make my clients aware ahead of time that, listen, 24 hours is what we have from the time that they accept this offer. So get your money lined up and get it ready for check, right? If they're out of the country or something else, then I'll kind of discuss that with the agent. But for the most part, and then I'll put it into the offer, but I haven't come across that yet.
And let's remind the people that these examples of clauses are only for purchase and sale. Now, leasing has its own series of clauses. That we can talk about.
I don't think we have time to get into that one because there's too many clauses in there that, and for the love of God.
Frankly, most of them now are rendered meaningless because of not most of them, but a couple that used to be classics are rendered meaningless. Post-dated checks.
You can still do that though.
No. It's now according to the Residential Tenancies Act, and I know the Residential Tenancies Act very well.
No, I know.
One of our biggest clients,
you can never demand.
One of our biggest clients used to be a slum landlord. So,
and I know you're talking about. No, I understand that, but here's the thing: it's always been illegal for the landlord to demand it.
No, I'm saying according to the Residential Tenancies Act, it's illegal, to demand for them to demand it. Yeah.
But it's not illegal for the client to offer it up, the tenant to offer it up. If the tenant says, I offer, and if it's worded like that in the Schedule A, that the tenant voluntarily offers to provide 10 post-dated checks.
Yeah. No, that's not illegal.
There's nothing the landlord-tenant board will do against that because it's been volunteered.
That's not illegal. I'm just coming from a place of being used to work on the listing side for rental arrangements. Actually, both on the listing side and cooperating side sometimes. But that's one though. But the whole pet deposit as well, right? That's another one.
Right.
That even if I believe with that one, even if the tenant wants to offer it, they can't.
Why not?
Because if a pet deposit is illegal,
right,
they're offering something illegal, so it would probably account towards some sort of security deposit.
Right.
It wouldn't be a pet deposit.
You just phrase it differently.
Yeah, I'm just saying it that as well. But okay, that's just another conversation. Residential real estate is an entire different conversation that we can do 2 hours on. We both have a lot of stories. We both have a lot of advice.
Residential leases, you mean, not real estate? Because it's still
leases, yeah.
Yeah, you said real estate.
Sorry, my apologies. I'm just tired.
You're forgiven.
Yeah, thank you very much.
What are some other clauses? Just one or two.
Well, no, if you're talking about properties that are close to, for instance, I don't know, factories, right?
Right.
You can do soil tests, or if they're potential contamination, right?
Right.
And there are a lot of environmental clauses, such as soil tests. And you mentioned a good one for maybe properties that are further north or more in the rural parts of the city.
Right.
If they're in a cottage, for instance, such as a well, right? You can use water testing clauses for that as well.
Let me see here. Well, I think let me see. Sorry, I'm just pulling up an offer, just because. See if some of my other offers, what I put in here. Oh yeah, here. Why don't we think of this? That all mechanicals in the house are in not necessarily good working order, but working order, because good is actually subjective.
Can you say that one more time? 3, 2, 1, and then so I could make a clean edit for that pause. So just like
you paused it.
No. I wrote it down, so I'm gonna edit it in post. I wrote it down the time where that long pause was.
Okay.
So just say 3, 2, 1, and also
3, 2, 1, and also here's something I didn't think about, but I put in all my offers. That the mechanicals of the property, so like the HVAC, and other things such as that. Hold on, to read exactly that. This is from.
Bro, read it first and then do it on the podcast. Okay, do another 3, 2, 1. Because right now even the microphone's not in your face.
Okay.
It's next to your cheek.
Okay.
You don't speak out of your cheek.
So 3, 2, 1. And also, I'm surprised that I forgot about this, but I just pulled up an offer, and in it was that the mechanical, electrical, heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems, and essentially all other mechanicals are in not good working order, but in working order. And the reason why we take out good, although it's part of the actual, it's the standard clause says good working order, but good is subjective.
Exactly.
Your good might be different than mine. My good is like the fact that it turns on. That's good
for you. That's
for
good
other
for
people.
you.
They want good to be like brand new good.
Yeah, that's right.
It's subjective.
I put normal working condition or something like that. Right.
Even normal could be somewhat up for interpretation.
It's a higher standard where you're assuming it's going to work.
So on the listing side, if they put in like something that can be subjective, like good or normal or whatnot, I cross it out. Working order. That's it. I leave it at that because we're not going to warranty what kind of working order it's going to be in. It's working. So that, and then also even shadows, right? When we think about the shadows, the stuff that comes in the property, shadows and fixtures.
Exactly.
Like, it was a complete brain fart. The fact that I didn't think about this, and neither did you. But the fridge, the stove, the microwave, the washer and dryer.
You'd be surprised. Sometimes the island in the kitchen is not fixed to the ground.
Right.
And sometimes it's a movable island.
So you gotta put that in.
Every time I go into a showing now, because I almost had a bad experience with that, I try to push the island to see if it's fixed or not.
Right. But, I had somebody that took a mirror, the powder room mirror that took with them, and I was like, seriously?
Well,
so I just replaced it for my client. That doesn't seem that
ridiculous to me.
No, but it's come on, it's kind of petty. Like we put in.
But if it was like their mirror from their wedding,
sure, then put it into the listing that the powder room mirror is excluded. Don't surprise my clients coming to a house when we, because this was on the buy side. They come to the house and they see that the bathroom, the powder room mirror is missing. They're like, was that not in the is that not considered a shadow? And I was like, generally it is, and rarely do people take it out.
Shadows are movable items that are personal property.
Right.
Fixtures are what it sounds like. They're fixed to the property. They're part of the structural almost.
Right. A light fixture would be considered a shadow, right? Would be a fixture. Would be
light fixture is a fixture. Yeah.
Yes. Your fridge is a shadow.
Yes.
Because it's plugged in, it can be removed.
Yes, but typically it's thought of as a fixture.
Your fridge?
I'm saying typically it's thought of as a fixture. It's not. It is a chattel.
Well, that's why chattels and fixtures. That's
No, I'm saying most people assume it's a fixture.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
what you're saying. They assume it's a fixture.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not a fixture. The appliances are not fixtures.
Yeah.
They're all chattels and they can be removed. Just like that powder room bathroom mirror, which they took, so I just had to replace it for my clients.
For sure.
Light fixtures, window blinds and curtains, those can all be removed.
Another thing you have to...
Somebody once took... I heard of a story where they lifted the broadloom. They actually removed the carpet out of the home. Yeah. Like from the upstairs down the stairs. You know how they have that?
Yeah. Another thing is a lot of times walk-in closets, they have shelvings, right?
Yeah.
That's also, I've noticed that sometimes that's moved as well.
Closet organizers, they can remove that if it's not in the offer.
Yeah. But there are clauses that are very important for all the fixtures to be listed. Sorry, all the chattel to be listed, and all the fixtures that are to be removed to be listed, right?
So it's part of everyone is kind of responsible to make that clear. The listing agent should really be going through the property with the client, the seller, and saying, what are you taking with you and what is staying, right? And then making that clear. If there's I have one client who has sold his house and there's 2 chandeliers that he had bought and they were like $1,200-$1,300 each. And he's like, I'm taking these with me. I'm not leaving these. And I was like, okay, sure. We'll just have to replace it with another light fixture. But he didn't want to, so I had to make it clear. I put it into the listing. Dining and living room light fixtures, not included. They're excluded from the chattels and fixtures. So don't put that into your offer because I will remove it. Right? So it's equally part the listing agent's fault if they don't have exclusions clearly written. And then it's also the buyer agent's responsibility to make sure that they have everything,
there's
included.
definitely due diligence on both sides.
The HVAC system, the AC, you have to put that into the offer.
Once again, I think this is another point where a good agent is differentiated from a less good agent.
From a poorer agent, perhaps? Less gooder.
Well, that's less good grammar. That's poor grammar for me. But sometimes as a proactive agent almost does the job of the listing agent for them, right? Sometimes I've asked questions that were... I shouldn't be asking that question. The listing agent should just disclose that. And they just didn't... They only disclose when I ask, right? So that's just another point where I think if a good agent, if on the buying side, you're almost thinking in certain circumstances, you're thinking for your own buyer. And hopefully not in every case, but some cases, if you're dealing with maybe a busy agent on the listing side or maybe a poor agent, you're thinking for that agent as well, right? In terms of, not in terms of negotiating, but you should, by the way, that's a different story, but in terms of just factual things that need to be disclosed and discussed, right? You got to take the position, as an agent, I think you got to take the position of your buyer and what you want, like what you think is going to be included in that property and include it all into the listing and into the offer, right? So oftentimes what I'll do is I'll go back to the listing and I'll look at all the photos all over again, right? And then, so see if there's anything missing.
If there's anything missing out of my offer that we saw and I would think or my buyer would think is included in the property.
Yeah. Oh my
and then
God.
I add that in.
That just brought up such a bad memory for me.
You're welcome.
No, it's just... I don't know if I should tell this story, but last summer, or not last summer actually, this early 2020, I was uploading 2 listings onto the market at the same time.
Right.
Literally that day, I was putting on 2 listings onto the market. And what happened was, for one of the listings, I accidentally put a picture of like I mixed up the pictures of the
Of your
master
properties?
Not okay, chill. Not all the pictures.
No, just like one. Yeah.
One, but it was the picture of the master bedroom.
Oh.
One of the properties was a $2.3 million home, detached, and the other property was
Basement rental?
no, it was not a basement rental. I'm not.
Imagine that.
It was a condo for sale.
Oh,
right?
okay.
But I mixed it up, and I got a couple of showings, and their agents angry at me. They thought I was trying to fuck them over.
Right.
They thought like, this is not the bedroom. Like I can complain to you. I was saying it was honestly a mistake. It was an honest mistake. Right. But I don't think I'm gonna include that in there.
No, include it's fine.
No,
it's an honest mistake.
Bro.
It happened.
Fucking serious people are listening to this.
Yeah.
Say this guy doesn't even know which fucking picture to put for.
It's an honest mistake.
No,
yeah.
bro,
did you sell the properties?
That. Yes, I did.
Okay.
I'm not including that.
No, you have to.
I'm not. I'm not comfortable.
I wasn't comfortable with me laughing at my own last name.
What, bro? That was such light work.
Get out of here.
I'm actually not including that. I'm serious.
Then why'd you say it?
Because we're in a conversation, man. Like at the
exactly.
End of
Let the people hear our mistakes. It's okay.
Why is your voice cracking?
I'm going through puberty.
Bro, no.
You gotta include this part.
Anyways, so those are our first time home buyer.
Well, another thing. Sorry.
Okay.
If you're having conversation, having multiple visits. And by multiple, I mean like 2 or 3. Depends on how far back the closing is. But the buyer being able to revisit the property,
definitely.
2 to 3 times before closing. Now, one thing I'll say about this is one of the visits, you should wait until the day before or the day of closing. And I've recommended this, and I'm actually gonna create a video and put it on my Instagram later as well. It's so you can go back and see the property one last time just before closing, either closing day or day before closing.
Yeah.
So you know what's left behind and what condition it's in.
Otherwise, very smart.
You'll have surprises. If you use up all 3 and then there's a month before closing, then you have no more visits. The seller doesn't have to let you in. You've used up your showings, your visits. You're shit out of luck. Too bad. Sure.
Another thing is, that definitely. Because, like I said, like you said, actually, is I usually put 3 buyer visitations. One maybe a week into, if it's a long closing. Now, right?
It depends on how long the closing. If it's like 2 or 3 weeks away or a month away, two showings is enough.
Yeah. But one like a week after the offer gets accepted.
Okay.
Maybe one. The specific example I think of is a 6 months closing, right?
Right. Okay.
So a week after the offer gets accepted, one like in the middle, and like once again, one right before, a day before, even 2 days before. I would say it's okay.
I'll leave a day before or the day of. I once went day of, and the place was a shitstorm, and I called the lawyer and I was like, "Listen, closing is at like 4 or 5 o'clock. Don't send money." Or claw back $5,000 until they clean up all this garbage, because we're not gonna take care of it. And this was the day of, like it was just a shitstorm inside the house. There was so much garbage and still like stuff that they are supposed to move out, still left behind. I call a lawyer, claw back $5,000. We can close, but claw back $5,000 until literally everything is removed, and then you can send them the other $5,000.
For sure.
So I don't even trust 2 days, unless really, once again, depending on the seller, what they're like. If I walk through the property and it's a nice, well-kept property, it's clean and all of that, then perhaps 2, and also depending on my schedule and the client's schedule. But sorry for interjecting. What was your...
No, that was a good input. I was just agreeing with you in terms of how many buyer visitations you put, right?
Right.
And I've had in the past, unfortunately, where the seller doesn't confirm the buyer visitation, which is kind of a legal gray area because they don't confirm it because you have to book it, right?
Right.
Like you're booking
usually
a showing.
24 hours in advance, yeah.
But they don't confirm it, so what do you really do at that point, right? You can't barge in All you can do is provide pressure through the listing agent, to the lawyer, to the brokerage. Hey, we're trying to see this property. We're trying to see this property.
Right.
But yeah, that's just an anomaly, I would say.
Well, I don't think legally they can really deny you.
They have not confirmed it. I've booked the show in the past. They just didn't confirm it. If they don't confirm it, I can't,
Well, see, it all depends on how you structure that clause. If it says upon mutually agreed upon time, then yeah, the seller can say it's not convenient for me. But if you just write with 24 hours notice, then they've agreed that we give 24 hours notice and you're going to make the property available to us.
But even if you write, my thing is, yes, I probably wrote mutually agreed upon time. But even if you don't write that, let's say they don't say anything, you don't have the keys. Even if you go, you can't get in.
Well, the key should still be in a lockbox.
Oh, that's true.
Right?
That's
so
true.
Then I gave you 24 hours notice.
Yeah.
If the key's in a lockbox, I'm walking in.
Yeah. Anyways.
And then we can duke it out.
Hopefully not.
No.
Anyways, that's our episode on our advice for first-time home buyers, advice for buyers in general.
If you have any questions or thoughts, leave them in the comments down below. We would be happy to address them.
And our contact information is in the description. Please subscribe, comment, rate, and review. And yeah, if you have any feedback, as Ali said, please provide it. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for
listening.
Exactly.
Till next time.
Bye-bye.
Take care of yourselves and each other.
Okay. Goodbye.
You don't know where that's from.
No, I don't.
Oh, shit. I forgot the audacity.
Okay, in 3, 2, 1.